With all the recent grief and pain my family has been suffering over the past 2 months, it gave me a lot of time to reflect on life. At first, my focus was all around the most obvious issue, which, of course, was the murder of my son this past June. My Wyoming partner and other close friends, many of them who were in the chase, they convinced me that it was going to make me sick if I don't get my mind off of that crime. They suggested maybe playing a game or getting back into the chase like I was in the past, because those are the things I enjoyed. It would take my mind off it. So I decided to go back and reflect on the chase. Since I do not want to go live that much these days, at least for now, I started spending some time talking with many of the searchers from whom reached out to me in support. I also decided to talk to some that perhaps in the past I did not get along with. In the end, we ended up having some really good conversations. And to avoid conflict, we just simply avoid discussing solutions. For example, last night on Ben's Discord, I had a great conversation with various people, including Packer Jack. And Packer Jack, I've never talked with in the past. And I discovered that he's not the man that people told me that he was. And that's just one example. This happened with a lot of people. So instead of listening to what others say about someone, it's best that I use my own judgment. And when I do, I see a completely different person than they told me. So there are many people now that I see in a different light, so to speak. And anyway, here is the one thing that I thought about, which prompted me to make this video. And it happened this morning when I was having my coffee and talking with a couple of people on Discord. It's nothing new that people think Forrest created the chase with a much larger picture than just a treasure chest. We discussed this on my live shows, street shows, candy shows, Kiwi shows, even on Greg's show, at least when there was no drama talk on the show. Plus, it was also suggested by many people on Ben's Discord and Ben himself. And that is, what if Forrest was looking for that one person whom could work on something that he wanted to do in the future? And they would essentially carry on his legacy. And what if the treasure chest was just a lure to attract people to the treasure hunt? And that wasn't the main goal. Now, like I said, this is not earth shattering. This is nothing new. I started to think about that a lot more. Like I said, it's not a new idea, but I thought about it more, and now I have an even larger picture of what it could be. And I wanted to discuss that here because I think a lot of people might like this. And certainly it's going to provide something for you to think about. And what helped me think about it more was a user on Discord named The Moon Is Our Mission. And they said, and I quote, "I hear that's the plot of the Codex, everyone working together." So hear me out, guys. Ask yourself, what if? I do not know if the Codex plot was like that because I never read the Codex. But what if the concept is true, but taken to an extreme? Let's listen to a clip from a video that I made, and I'll link this video below in the description. It's basically part of many longer interviews that Dal Neitzel did with Forrest Fenn over the years. I'm using pieces of those clips in order to show proof that Forrest Fenn had a much bigger plan than the treasure chest. So really pay close attention to the video that I'm going to play right now.
All of these are Spanish things that I found at San Lazaro Pueblo. But the interesting thing are these 5 keys. They go to wooden chests. Now, if I can find 5 keys out there, why can't I find a wooden chest? I think that, and I talked about this in my book, at the revolt in 1680, there were a lot of Spanish people at San Lazaro and around San Lazaro. But they were told that if they didn't get out of town, they were going to be killed. So these Europeans are horrible bureaucrats, Spanish particularly. They kept notes, diaries, ledgers, and they wanted to know keep track of how many sheep they had and goats and what the grizzly bears were doing down in the cornfields. And so when Pedro learned that he was going to get killed if he didn't head down the river to what is now El Paso and into Mexico, So he took his chest and he found an empty room someplace that was falling in. He took his chest and he stuck it in there under some timbers, some vigas, some latias, and tucked it in there nice and put some rocks around it and foliage and limbs so nobody could see it. And he went down the river trying to escape the inevitable that was going to come tomorrow or the next day. And he may have been, his idea was to I'll come back later and retrieve my treasures. So here we are in 2012, digging out there. I have 5 keys, and I come to this room where Pedro hid his treasure chest, and there's his wooden chest. It's full of ledgers, it's full of diaries, it has some trinkets in there, personal effects, and his diaries and his ledgers are going to tell me the names of the people who lived out there in 1560, 70, 80, 1600, how many sheep they had, how many goats, what was their relationship with the Indians, and diaries of everyday life out there. We're going to rewrite the history of the Southwest. If we can find one of these wooden chests that has what I know is in them, ledgers and diaries and so forth. It's going to be wonderful when we do that.
So clearly, Forrest Fenn found only one chest. Okay. 3 more exist because there were 4 keys. He found 4 keys and 1 chest. So 3 more out there. Well, what if he found those 3? And that's his trove of information. And it's somewhere in a vault waiting. Now, why would he do that? Well, let's examine one thought. What is the one thing that everybody would probably agree on about the poem? Answer. It's so vague that many very interesting solves can come out of it. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen a lot of really good solves. Not just mine. There are some really good solves out there. And that's because it's vague. The poem can easily fit into other areas. In fact, that's the primary reason why many people, they have very compelling solves, and yet none of us can prove our solves. Well, what if it doesn't matter whether your solve is right or wrong? What if they are all correct in that they expose what Forrest Fenn was looking for? And that is talented people. Not one, I'm saying people, plural. Because clearly you can interpret that poem in multiple ways, and I think that might have been his intention. Now, sure, one of those ways is going to lead to a treasure chest. But like I said before, that could have just been the lure. Because how else is Forrest going to get people interested in the chase if he didn't put something out there, right? But what he really wanted to do, and he intentionally made the film like that, so it's so vague, he was more interested to see the thought process that the searchers would go through and the solves they came up with. I mean, that's what you do when you're interviewing somebody for a job, right? So, like I said, what if the entire point of the chase was for Forrest not to discover one person, but a group of very talented people to build a team that could work on a project that he funds with his estate's money? In other words, like I said, there's no single solution. There is a collection of solutions that Forrest Fenn himself deemed interesting, created by the type of people that he wanted to run a company based on real archaeology and discovery of treasures that perhaps he had done in the past. That's why I showed you that video. In other words, he could have a trove of stuff laying around, and he was looking for talented people to examine that data. Amateur talented people, because that's the kind of guy Forrest Fenn was like. He didn't necessarily like the academics. He didn't like stuff in a museum. He wanted hands-on people. So what if this group of people are going to be the ones that are hands-on and writing and researching the stuff that he discovered in that quote-unquote trove? I mean, let's look at the talent pool that we have left hanging around in the chase. Let's see, we got writers, we got authors, we got PR people and media talent. We've got lawyers, archaeologists, scientists, people into cryptography, IT professionals, software engineers, English majors and language specialists, history research experts. I mean, look at that, right? That is the talent pool that you'd want because you may need to research ancient languages, you know, you may need to know about archaeology. So this man could be putting together the perfect team, but he didn't want to go and do things the traditional way. And he certainly didn't want to hire the academics. He wanted to build a team. Okay. And what better way to do it than to write a poem that's vague? Okay. And then see what kind of solutions people come up with. Right. I mean, look, guys, we could have the ultimate team to work on a trove of forest discoveries that would carry on his legacy for decades to come. Not one solvers, maybe 10 to 15, just like he talked about me. Okay. Yeah, 10 or 15 solvers managing something. Well, you know, what if Shiloh is going to manage it and the Fenn estate money and funds the entire project and each member of the team becomes a shareholder of the assets? So you earn your pay with the work that you're going to do on those assets. See what I mean? And obviously you clearly would probably get a pretty nice salary. Okay, we're not talking about a $1 million chest here. I don't know. I've heard numbers of Forrest Fenn's estate could have been worth, I thought conservatively 50 or 60 million. But when you factor in the value of money today, it could be 100 million. And a good chunk of that could have went into a company. And that company holds the trove. Okay, I'm not talking about the treasure chest. So again, the treasure chest is found. That part's over. You know, I'm talking about a trove of information that he has, that he wants amateurs that he deemed fit to be capable of working with those assets and write the history of that. And he'll, of course, always be part of that legacy because many of the discoveries were made by him. Okay. I mean, so what if Shiloh's in charge of, and that's what he's going to announce? What if he's going to notify and manage the team built by his grandfather as soon as it's appropriate? I mean, it's just a thought, but you got to admit it's plausible, you know. And I mean, I don't know about you, but that would be the most exciting thing I can think of. Imagine that, Forrest Fenn building a company with a team of shareholders that are going to work on projects that he had planned in the past. And what better way to locate talent than to come up with a poem? I mean, maybe that's why it had to be solved before he died. Maybe he wanted to build and give Shiloh that list of people. Now, again, this has nothing to do with the treasure chest. That part is over. There was probably only one treasure chest, but that wasn't his main goal. So what Jack may have found is just nothing but a piece. Matter of fact, it is very possible that Jack solved the poem and found the chest, but Jack doesn't have the talent that Forrest Fenn was looking for. I mean, we simply don't know, or maybe Jack is part of the talent pool. So we could all be arguing over solutions when it's not one solved that is a winner. It's 10 or maybe 20. I mean, imagine that, you know, and imagine if it also involved foreign people, Paul, okay, Mario, all right, and Davy B, right? What if that's the kind of people he was looking for? Do you really think it's a coincidence that most of the people hanging around now are extremely talented? They all fit one of the holes I just put them in: writers, authors, PR people, media talent, lawyers, archaeologists, scientists, software engineers, IT professionals, you know, language specialists, history research people. Come on. There's something to be said about that. I think this was fully intentional. And that is something that Shiloh could come out with that would be completely cool. Now, I'm just speculating here. I'm not saying that's what Shiloh's going to do. By the way, Shiloh, if you listen to this, that does sound like a cool idea. If your grandfather didn't think of it, maybe you could think of it and you could do it. Okay. And you have access to the pool of people. So maybe you can start some kind of fun like this because I'm sure we just heard it in Forrest Fenn's mouth, from his mouth, that he made discoveries. And I'm not talking about money. he made, he said there's papers, ledgers, maps, blah, 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 all this stuff that's going to change Southwest history as we know it. That's what I'm talking about. So you got access to a pool of talent. And these are not snobby people that are cooped up in some university somewhere, hiding stuff in a basement, keeping it away from people. These are actual talented people that are trying to make something of themselves. Why not give them a chance? Why would he turn over stuff like that to people that he disliked? So anyway, bottom line, folks, let's see what Shiloh says over the next few months. According to Ben, back in March, on the 15th of March this year, Shiloh told Ben that he's going to have answers and the fund's going to come in 6 to 9 months. So September 15th, it'll be 6 months. December 15th is 9 months. We have no idea why he has that timeline, but it doesn't matter. Okay. We're not going to get any answers by listening to Troy or K-Pro or Cynthia or Dal or Ben or Greg or Bill Gorman or anybody. None of us have the answers. Okay, Shiloh is going to have the answers. And a lot of people say, well, what if Shiloh's working with the real Sauber? And that's right. What if he does? And that's probably going to make somebody think, well, man, my Saab is really good. Shiloh never talked to me. So I'm going to get mad. Well, don't get mad. How do you know that the group of Saabers don't know it themselves yet? That's the point. There's not, what I'm trying to say is it's not a single person. I believe Forrest Fenn was working on a team. So let me know what you think below in the comments. That's all I want to say, and I wanted to kind of put this out there pretty fast. I was talking about it on Discord, and I think it's potentially could lead to a lot of good discussion. And that's the kind of thing we need in this chase. A lot of people are going through a lot of issues in real life, not just me, not just Ben being swatted. There's a lot of people, until you've walked in somebody else's shoes, you don't know what they're going through. And a lot of people get frustrated because of the ending. And people are trying to one up each other. Well, no, my solve's right. No, mine's right. I'm the solver. Oh, no, I'm the solver. What if you're all the solvers? Think about that. Peace.